Utomic llega al mercado en un momento aparentemente óptimo cuando se popularizan los servicios de suscripción online en los videojuegos, con plataformas como Netflix y Spotify ya consolidadas en otros terrenos y con lo digital tomando posiciones frente al formato físico. Su propuesta tiene sentido, paga una cantidad fija al mes y accede de forma ilimitada a una biblioteca de juegos de PC. También enfrenta obstáculos, por ejemplo, la alta competencia en plataformas de venta digitales de juegos de PC, o el fracaso de intentos similares previos como OnLive, que ha dejado a compañías y consumidores escarmentados. Charlamos con Frank Meyer, PR de Utomic, sobre su plataforma, los retos de los servicios de suscripción y las futuras formas de juego.
And how did the project begin?
Actually, it started as another company. The founders started a company called Kaleido that uses the same tech, but they use it mainly for MMOs. So they license the tech to MMO game companies to divide their huge game up into bits and pieces that people can download as they play, so they don't have to wait hours upon hours before they can finally start playing. And people contacted the founders and were like, this tech is amazing. I would love to be, like, if you did something with it, like, can you make something out of it that we can actually play games on? What we wanted was one-click play. You just click on the game, you download a small bit, and you can start playing already while the rest downloads in the background. And they've just been building upon that and get the tech faster and better. For example, we had a game the other day that was 13 gigabytes when we got it, and we break it down into the first chunk was 800 megabytes, which most people can start in a few minutes if you have a decent connection.
And how did you see this hole in the market, this space for this new technology? Because we can see services like PS Now, which is not available in Spain because of the internet connection, or like Xbox Game Pass, but you have to download it. So how did you find this space in the market?
Yeah, it was really because the company started in 2014 already. That was after OnLive came and failed. So they saw an opportunity for a hybrid technology, which is like mostly download and a little bit of streaming. They saw that opportunity was there for it. Like, internet was getting better all over the world. Of course, there are still exceptions, but it was getting good enough to support a hybrid model instead of streaming, which, as you said, PlayStation Now is, in most locations, it's pretty hard to get working if it's even available there. The technology was there. There was a request from gamers for it. Like, people, there's been a shift in wanting to own everything. I can see a lot of collectibles behind you and game. Okay, there's been a slight shift. It's the same as with Netflix and with Spotify. Not everybody needs to own everything anymore. Like, you see it change. I think in gaming we're not quite there yet, as I hear from a lot of people still. But it is getting there more.
There are minimum requirements of internet connection to work with Utomic, and what are they?
Well, for internet, there actually are not minimum requirements, because our technology looks at your internet. It's like sees if you have a fast connection, a slow connection, and then divides the game up into pieces based on that connection. So you have a very slow connection. Unfortunately, it's going to take way longer for you to download that first piece before you can play. But if you have a really fast connection, then it's no problem at all. So that's why we got messages from all over the world from people that don't have access to, for example, PlayStation Now, have a bad internet connection, and they said Utomic works for us.
Taking a look at the catalog, we can see AAA games, mostly from past years, and also indie games.
Yes.
So it was difficult to negotiate with the companies to include the games into your library, and how was it?
Oof, that's been a journey. Yeah, I joined the company actually last year, and I heard stories from when they actually started open beta. So the first partners we got, and even partners we signed last year, like, for example, Warner Brothers. Since they started the company, they took to get signed and to actually get the games on our platform. Mostly what we think it's because how OnLive came to be. Like everybody was supporting it. Everybody thought, oh, this is the new thing. This is the future. And then it failed. So that put a lot of, especially the bigger publishers, made them a little bit more scared. If you get the first few publishers in, it just gets incrementally easier and easier and easier, to the point where now some of our partners just come to us and say, hey, we have this game, it's coming out in a couple months. Would you maybe want to get it day one on Utomic, or like slightly after it at least? It's mostly indie games. If you just look at AAA games, they're trying to get as much money as possible out of it for a couple years. There's this whole DLC planned out for at least 2 years, I think, which also makes sense that those games are not on the subscription service. So we focus a lot on getting newer indie games, and of course keep adding the AAA, as we call them, the blockbuster classics, like the Batmans and the Saints Rows and things like that.
Why do you think the companies were reluctant in the first place?
The experience they had with OnLive. So it could have been the future, and then it just didn't work because streaming technology just wasn't there and still isn't there. And I think that made them really reluctant moving forward towards new models. And I think it also has to do with we're an independent startup. We don't have any industry ties. We're not a Microsoft, we're not a Sony, we're not an EA. We don't publish our own games. We don't have those big bags of money that they have. So you need to earn their trust. But I think, we're getting more and more people on board. Like we have over 100 partners right now. So I think the trust is getting there.
Do you think that independence of you is an advantage?
Yeah, I definitely think so, because for example, EA has their own subscription service. They probably won't allow other publishers on their service, and maybe they do it really small, but they won't actually feature other publishers prominently. And with us being independent, we can feature everybody equally. Like what, for example, Netflix does with their originals. They put their content first, then the rest, unless it's really popular, but then it makes sense. And I think our independent nature just goes around that, and people are more easily onboarding then and be like, okay, we get the same treatment as everybody else.
With your offer, what kind of users are you trying to attract?
It's a lot of the people that, as myself actually also, like between 25, 45, that age group. You often have a busy job, you have like a busy lifestyle in general, maybe you have kids, depending, but like I said earlier as well, you don't really have time to stay on top of the latest games, or you don't have time to play all of them. I mean, if I look at my backlog, it's 300 plus games, I think, that I just haven't touched. And that's with Utomic, you kind of, like, you start it up and you say like, oh yeah, this game, I always wanted to play it. It's like, maybe just click on it and just start playing, because you just feel like playing a game and you don't really want to search for anything. We just attract those kind of people generally. They don't care about the news releases per se, because we won't get the core gamer that just wants to play a Fortnite, PUBG. We won't get that. Doesn't make sense. We get questions about it, of course, but we won't get those games unless we're going to start making them ourselves. But that's far from very far from now.
There is a big offer when talking about PC selling platforms now. I know your approach is different from Steam, for example, but how are you planning to convince PC players to go to your service?
What we always say, because there have always been people that say like, yeah, but I have Steam and blah blah. You always get that, of course, because Steam is the #1 place that people go to get new games. What we like to think of ourselves is as something that joins, like that goes together. You maybe buy your games on Steam, but you also have a subscription for Utomic. We don't need to be an exclusive thing to people that they just go to Utomic. That's not necessary. I mean, people still want to play the latest games, obviously. So yeah, the way we compete best is by offering a big library for a low price that people with smaller wallets Like, if you can only buy one game a month for 10, 20 euro, that's even not that much for at least, yeah, most Western people. But yeah, it's hard to make that choice, especially with a couple hundred games coming out now every week. How do you make the choice anymore? Like, it makes more sense to try something like us, where you get 5 new games every week. You just pay once a month. You don't have extra fees anytime.
What was the most difficult thing you have to deal with when creating Utomik? It was the negotiation with the publishers, or the tech, or what?
Yeah. Now, well, the tech was already there, so that actually was the easiest part. It was just like making it slightly different. I think the hardest part was definitely convincing the bigger publishers. Like I said, Warner took us a couple years to convince, and besides that, it's just player awareness. Like, get your service out there, like get noticed by people like you that write about us or make a video about us. Like that's really been a hard part, because if you're not known and you write to any website, like, hey, I have this cool tech, maybe you want to take a look at it, and a lot of people are going to pay attention. And we're reaching the point now where more people are paying attention to us, so that has also become easier. But I think after getting partners to sign up, that has definitely been the biggest hurdle, and something we still struggle with, because there's still a lot of people that have never heard about us. But yeah, we hope to change that.
You released the platform like 2 weeks ago, I think. Mm-hmm. How is it going? Are you satisfied with the subscriptions, or?
Yeah, no, definitely, and we love the attention we got actually from Spain. We got a lot of attention from Spain, so we're very happy and very appreciative about that. Yeah, it's been really good. We've seen a big increase in numbers all over the place. The goals are currently being met, so we just need to keep up and keep adding new cool content, and then yeah, we'll see where it ends. We're actually at the moment, a couple of my colleagues are in Japan. They went to Bit Summit over the weekend, and they're talking to a lot of big Japanese game companies now. So hopefully, fingers crossed, that we can add some cool Japanese games pretty soon. But yeah, it's looking good, let's say that.
Have you received any interesting feedback from the users, like suggestions you are willing to apply in the future?
Well, technically, it's mostly been stuff that you would expect, like people that game a lot. They often request social features, like having a friends list, being able to talk to your friends. Achievements has been a big question, but it's mostly the standard stuff, actually. I don't think we got any like exciting things that we're like, oh, we should get that. Another thing would be our own servers. Like, we have a lot of games that have online multiplayer, but we don't have the online multiplayer part, because they run their servers on Steam, which obviously we're not Steam, so we can't use that. So that has also been a big request, because we can only run online games where they have dedicated servers. Achievement is on our list to come relatively soon. And yeah, then we'll work our way down. Social features, servers, we definitely want to add that. VR support has also been requested. That's been the most common. And yeah, can you add PUBG? Can you add GTA 5? But yeah.
So in the near future, we can expect achievements, something more you can say?
We don't really have a roadmap for the other stuff. Like, we're testing achievements at the moment internally, so I can't say too much about it, but we're really working. It's getting closer and closer. It's still going to be a while, but yeah, for now I can just say achievements is something we definitely want to release sooner rather than later.
Do you think that it is possible that in the future we have major AAA games on a streaming and subscription service like yours the very first day of their releases?
I definitely think it's possible. Yeah, it's going to be a while though. I think, well, Microsoft is taking the first steps already with Game Pass, adding Sea of Thieves day one. Like, of course, Microsoft, it is their own content, it is their own game. So for them, it's like, yeah, do we want to do it? Do we not want to do it? It's just an internal decision. For us, that would be a bit harder, because we have to talk to the publishing partner, of course, and be like, hey, do you want to do this? But I think in a couple of years that they will get there, maybe. But it really depends on how the next year maybe plays out. Like if more people embrace the subscription servers, then it will get sooner rather than later. Because if people see an opportunity to earn money, then they will jump on that. So that's, yeah.
What would you say to the people who are reluctant to digital format? I mean, do you think physical format is dead or is going to be dead in the near future?
I wouldn't say it would be dead. I mean, you always have people that want to own physical. Like you have collectors, you have people, again, I'm just looking at the games behind you. You will always have people that have that, and you can't convince them otherwise. For me personally, I switched to digital because of space issues. For me, it just made more sense. I had bookshelves full of DVDs and games, and it's like, So yeah, I don't think we convince people that are very hardcore in their physical games, but we see more people that accept that it's digital only. Again, with Steam, if you buy a game, you only have the license. You don't own anything really. You just have a license that you're allowed to play the game because you bought it. And so many millions of people do that. So I think it's not really an issue. It just, people still seem to think that being in a, technically it is a little bit true, but in a subscription service you have less ownership, because if you don't stop paying your fee, you lose access to your games, opposed to when you buy a game, you of course you keep it. But it seems to be becoming less and less of an issue actually. So I don't know. I think it will become even more over time.
What do you think are the main challenges that digital and streaming distribution services are facing in the future?
Well, I have to always correct. It's not streaming, it's downloading. But yeah, it will always depend on technology. That will always be a thing. If the internet doesn't get better in many areas of the world, it will always be an issue, because it will take too long for people to download games, and that will remain the thing unless they upgrade the technology again. Now, I just think mostly like digital is the thing. Like it's become more and more. I think it already overtook retail a long time ago. So you see that shift from retail to digital, and it's just going to continue over the years. Like I said before, I don't see retail dying, but I think digital will be definitely being by far the main thing that people will have.
Why do you think Netflix is so popular and downloading streaming services like UTOMIK still they're not? So why do you think there is such a big difference between the series or films and video games?
I think it has a lot to do with how you consume a show and how you consume games. Like games, you have to focus. Most games, at least the games I play, you have to focus. You have to pay attention to either the story, action. Even with puzzles, you need to pay attention. As with the series, I think a lot of people I hear about Netflix, they just have it on in the background, like as some sound going on while you're doing other stuff. So they're maybe less invested in it than you need to be with a game. You don't leave it running. I mean, yeah, you don't really do that. It doesn't progress without you. So I think that is the main difference between games and series and films like that.
Tell us a little bit about yourselves as a company. Have you been working in the industry, or were you just gamers, or I mean, something about your profile?
Yeah, well, our founders themselves, they were actually game developers before they started this company, or the previous company. They made their own indie games. That was before Steam blew up and all the indie games made tons of money. So they kind of stopped before that happened. And if you look at our company, we're all gamers, either digital or board games. Like every Friday we stop at I think around 4 o'clock, then the drinks get out and or come out, and the board games come out, and half of the company starts playing board games, and half of the companies joins around the meeting room table, and somebody's playing on the big screen is playing a game that we have on Utomic. So yeah, we're a company filled with nerds, game nerds, for sure.
If you received a really cool offer in the future, were you willing to sell, you know, Utomic to a big company or not? You want to remain independent?
Yeah, that's a hard question for me personally to answer, because that's more the founders' area, of course. But as I know them, I'm not sure they want to give away control of their little baby. Like you should have seen when we launched, we had a party in the evening, and our CEO made a speech, and he actually had to cry because he got so emotional. Like, I can see us maybe get support from an investor, from an outside party, like a bigger party, but not. I don't see us, for example, become part of Microsoft. I don't see that happening.
Okay, thank you very much, Frank, and I hope we speak in the future.
We will.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.